Welcome back to another edition of Showreel. I'm Lauren Peacock and alongside me is my co-host
Tony Pankaluik. This week we have Double the Trouble with special guests Stephen Maxwell and Brad Jennings, co-founders of the cinematic theatre company Markwell Presents.
Now these guys have an impressive resume that boasts the creation of 16 new cinematic theatre productions for young people throughout many Queensland schools. Welcome to the couch, guys. It's awesome to have you.
Thank you.
So first off, can you tell us about Markwell Presents? What do you do?
Markwell Presents is an independent theatre company based in Brisbane. Stephen and I started working together about 10 or 12 years ago, writing, directing and producing theatre for young people. These days we essentially create new work for young people in major venues. We also do video design for other theatre companies, and we facilitate artist in residence process projects for schools in and around southeast Queensland.
You said you met like 10 years ago. Where did that sort of inspiration come for you guys? You just met together and said, hey, let's start this. When did that all come about?
Oh, well, I guess we met as teachers teaching up in Townsville and became sort of fast friends. And originally we actually played a bit of guitar together and sang a few songs, and the school fates and all that sort of stuff. And that's how we came up with the name sort of Markwell Presents, just to kind of have a band. We realised that wasn't going to go too far, so Brad had already written some scripts and asked me to we started talking about this idea of how we could bring something new to it, and this idea of putting projection behind the play so that it interacts with what's going on.
And so you mostly work with young adults, and that's obviously the reason you've been working with high school students and you enjoy their...
Well, having sort of trained as teachers, we're both really excited to work with young people, and the first couple of plays that we'd written were focused around stories that related to young people and some of the conflicts and dilemmas that young people faced, and we just found that young audiences seem to really get turned on to this idea of using projection in theatre. And so when we started the company, then we realised that for us, our strength would be to work with clients that we're already very familiar with, which is young people, and because of our educational background, it seemed like a really logical step, I guess, to start working in schools and to access an audience and a clientele that we were already very familiar with.
So, what are the pros and cons with working with young people? Because obviously they're not as mature as when they get older. They they understand things, but what are some of the pitfalls?
Sometimes their enthusiasm gets the better of them. They jump in there, and sometimes I guess they sort of learn the process of getting into an acting and getting into the rehearsal process. So sort of respecting the director and his opinion and all that sort of stuff. So, but actually that's also a good thing, because they're really enthusiastic. They're really willing to learn, and they bring along a lot of themselves to the character. So
I think one of the key differences with our company. We've always written and produced theatre for young people, and we've been really interested in trying to actually engage young actors. So rather than creating shows for young people that feature adult actors playing younger characters, we've always sort of had the faith in young actors. And people have often questioned us, how we feel about having young performers. Sometimes do a season of 2 weeks, and for us they've never really let us down in the past, and for us it's so much more authentic to have young actors playing the roles of young people rather than putting university students, for example, and playing grade 11 students.
That's right, they're sort of living it, and so they're playing off it as well.
And they bring their own kind of understanding to it as well, and often that can inform the rehearsal process for us in terms of believability or realism in a scene too.
And so where are your plays usually performed? Where are they?
Well, we've usually work in professional theatre, so we've worked at the Vizzy and the Powerhouse and Dance North up in Townsville, Judith Wright Centre, Ipswich Civic Centre. We always try and do our shows and give the kids the opportunity to present in a professional theatre environment. So, which I think makes it doubly exciting for them. And I was going to say, when we bring them together, they actually get really excited about working with each other, because they're in a room where everybody's like, a theatre trained into acting, and they're not having to deal with their normal, drama room sort of whatever goes on there. So that, it's always a really good experience.
How important is it these days to keep theatre very innovative? Because I know you said like the kids are really excited to do it, but like what are the techniques you use to go against like traditional theatre methods?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons we describe what we do as cinematic theatre, and we call that a fusion of live performance and the magic of the big screen, and that's been, I guess, a brand that's been identified with our theatre company over the last 10 years. And initially we started that because Steve and I were both really interested in film and theatre, and one thing that film does really effectively is its ability to maintain the suspension of disbelief, and sometimes in traditional theatre, those moments where sets are being changed or the environment on stage is being changed, the audience is given a chance to kind of switch off a bit. And so we started thinking about ways that we could use the projection to keep the audience continually engaged, and we do that through narrative and thematic transitions that take the action or the story from the stage onto the screen and then back again. So that's sort of why we started kind of doing that.
And now, how many drafts do you go through with scripts before it's actually sort of performance ready?
Usually, there's 2 or 3 drafts, and we do a lot of our processes. We'll write it all up. We actually talk it through quite a lot before we even start writing. We kind of know exactly where we're going, what our characters are doing, and weirdly enough, with our partnership, we end up sort of dividing up the scenes and taking a scene each, and somehow it all works. We're in that headspace. Then once we've sort of got that first draft written, now we do a lot of read-throughs together, to listen to the characters ourselves, and we'll swap characters and hear how they sound, and go through it really, a long process before we even start rehearsing.
Yeah. So what are you actually currently working on now?
At the moment, we're designing video and cinematic for a number of school musicals, and we've currently got 2 touring shows, a high school and a primary school show touring with ArtsLink Queensland. So they're going around the state at the moment. They've just finished a couple of weeks in Townsville and Cairns, and we're just starting the writing process for a couple of new shows, which we hope will tour with them again next year.
Yeah, we're looking to adapt Fahrenheit 451, which is a classic Bradbury science fiction.
Well, guys, you've definitely given us a fantastic insight into Markwell Presents.
And don't go away, because Stephen and Brad will be back with us after the break.
Welcome back to Showreel. Since we have Brad and Stephen joining us with their theatre expertise, we thought we'd take a look at how acting compares on the stage to the screen. So guys, what do we think of the main differences between film and stage acting in terms of character development?
Yeah, well, with our cinematic theatre, we actually do a little bit of both. We pre-film a lot of sequences before the play and edit it so that it's part of the performance. So we actually get to experience both. I would say that, obviously the filming experience is much more technical and a lot more. The kids sometimes have a harder time sort of getting used to it because they've got to hit a mark and they've got to say things at the right time. And, it's very stop-start and it's not very organic, I guess. Whereas the rehearsal process and the acting process for a theatre production is much more, you're always in action, you're always rehearsing, you're always getting to know your character, and then obviously when the show starts, the audience is there and you have to perform. You can't say, stop, that wasn't any good. So yeah, I think personally I enjoy the theatre experience much more.
Yeah, because it's funny you mentioned that. I remember when I did high school, like back in, I went to Ipswich Grammar, I used to do drama performances, and it's exactly as you say, like the adrenaline rush kicks in, you just got to go with it. But it's actually really good, like it just gives you more life into the character, you just feel for it, whereas, the other on screen, you don't have that, yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, I think in front of, yeah.
How hard is it for actors to transition, do you think? Is there quite a big difference?
Yeah, I think it depends on the actor, and some actors just seem to have that ability to switch between the two really, really easily, and other actors I think take much more time to warm up to it, and I think also some actors look amazing on film, and I know from our experience of doing work with young actors, sometimes seeing someone for the first time on film going, wow, you look amazing, and just knowing that their performance is going to look great because they look great, and other people just don't have that photogenic quality. But I think also young actors tend to like over a season of work, tend to really develop their roles much more. And I think what we've noticed is, giving actors a chance to do a season that's a couple of weeks long, the performance that they give on opening night is very, very different to what they give on closing night, and often the chemistry between the actors and the relationship that they build is really evident on stage, and they appear so much more natural towards the end of a season, and you don't get that on film. You might get 2 or 3 takes to kind of nail it, whereas on stage you've got 2 weeks of performances to really achieve your best work.
Do young actors like what you guys got, do they ever do method acting where they sort of portray the character even outside, or you wouldn't encourage that? Because I know some actors do that.
I haven't really seen that. So we were talking about some of the cast members that we have sort of almost slot into their role, and they're really just playing a version of themselves. But no, I think that's much more relevant to obviously to film acting because of those stops and starts, and you're there. Like, I haven't seen anybody like Daniel Day-Lewis.
No, we have done one of the plays. One of our plays, Advanced Screening, is a play all about young people's relationships. I know one thing that we've done in the past is we've taken actors through character development exercises, which is all about strengthening the relationship between the 2 characters. And we've done things like in that particular play, most of the characters kiss, and we've done things like having to kind of broach that in rehearsal, and doing exercises like taking them for a walk around the block, holding hands, and kind of then kind of slowly getting them to get closer and closer, and then kissing in the rehearsal room, and trying to get over that hurdle, because there comes a point where you rehearse something for a number of weeks and it's like, so when are you guys actually going to kiss? Because they get to the kiss moment and then just turn their heads away. So trying to deal with that sort of stuff has I guess has made things a little bit easier for some of them.
With your character development, do they usually find themselves giving their character a background, like how they grew up, what sort of
and we encourage that as well, I guess. And I think with the last version of Advanced Screening, we created characters using social media. We created Facebook identities for those characters, and so that also gave the actors a bit of a chance to develop those roles a bit more.
They had to interact with people in character online, sort of thing, answer questions, all that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah. Do you think it's best for young aspiring actors to start like within theatre? Because you mentioned like all the techniques you try to help them. Like, do you think it's just the best place to start, or do you think there's just other avenues that don't really live up to the theatre experience?
It's interesting, like there is a sort of separation. There's different institutions that teach different things, but I think when you think of all those great actors that do a bit of both, like Kate Blanchett and all that sort of stuff, like they are really strong because they've got that grounding in theatre, because they can really develop a character and they can be strong and on stage in front of people. Whereas I think if you're just concentrating on TV or film, like there's something missing in that sort of acting.
Yeah. Who do you think are the sort of your favourite actors that have made that transition? Like you mentioned Kate Blanchett. She's a very talented actress, but are there any others that really stick out to you, like from Hollywood?
That have made the transition from theatre to film. I guess I'm not really sure. I mean, I think like actors like Kevin Spacey and people like that who I think is a really fantastic film actor, but he also does a lot of work in theatre as well. And I mean, I've never had the chance to see someone like that perform, but you can just imagine how captivating they're really captivating on film. How great they must be on stage as well when they're right there in front of you. So I think that'd be really great to see.
I always think of Hugh Jackman. He's got his Wolverine character, but Boy from Oz, he did so well. Brilliant.
Yeah, he can really dance, do the moves. He's not
triple threat.
He's not just killing people with the claws or anything. I know there's another one actor I remember. He's Sir Alec Guinness. He was the original Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was actually a really accomplished stage actor, and then he moved to on-screen, had a lot of success, but then he got typecast as Obi-Wan. And this is where I want to steer the discussion to typecasting. What do you think of that?
I think it's inevitable for some people, and there's certain actors who play roles really well. I mean, you take any number of action heroes who just seem to play those same roles over and over again. Like
Steven Seagal.
That's a bad example, maybe. But we just Steve and I went and saw the latest Die Hard film recently, kind of looking at Bruce Willis and going, he's actually he approaches that character with a little bit of tongue in cheek, I think, and he's actually quite charismatic now, probably more so than in his earlier films.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like he started off in TV doing moonlighting, sort of half action, half romance sort of stuff. So, but I think it's also what roles the actors choose to pursue after that. Like we think of Star Wars again, Mark Hamill
Luke
sort of went nowhere, and whereas Harrison Ford has gone on to choose and be successful at so many different roles and so many different characters. So I think it really is the strength of the actor to be able to be different characters.
Yeah, do you think it's like it comes down to the right role? Like John Travolta in the 70s, he was just like that Italian American always doing the dance movies, and then in the 80s his career was dead until he did Pulp Fiction. That was mid 90s, and it really sort of changed it. So I think I'd definitely agree that it comes down to the role you pick and if you're willing to diversify as an actor instead of like Arnie just does the same thing over and over.
That's right.
No, that's definitely true. But it's interesting, like a lot of actors, they have a lot to deal with, so whether it be on the stage or the screen, we'll be right back after the break.
I think our medium in general, like something that inspires me, is actually a lot of the U2 stuff with the huge sort of visual, spectacular, and bringing it, sort of having that live and also having the spectacular sort of thing. I can't think of any films.
I guess a few years ago we produced a play called Hollow Crossing, which was a live horror, and I've always had a bit of a liking for horror films. Like the cheesier the better, I think. We'd sort of come up with this idea to take a live horror story or like a hostage situation, I suppose, and put it on stage. And we wrote this play called Hollow Crossing, which was set in sort of Western Queensland, out in the middle of nowhere, where this guy is a serial killer, and he takes this journalist and his partner hostage. And so on stage we created kind of a cutaway of a set, and throughout the play the killer kind of reveals his story, so to speak. And so we were playing with that idea of the immediacy of the live performance matched with that kind of horror convention, and I guess that was inspired by a lot of horror films that I had seen before writing it.
Wolf Creek in particular.
Well, Wolf Creek had come out actually after we started writing the play. So, and having seen that, it was kind of like, but having seen that, it was kind of like, wow, that's actually, in terms of the genre and the style, and we wanted a kind of a uniquely Australian feel. So it was probably the closest thing to kind of our show, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the advantage that film has is you can actually put people in locations. It's all very real. But the advantage that theatre has is you're seeing that person doing things live, and it's just that little bit more immediate of an experience.
It's also in one location. Like you're obviously not going to go anywhere. They just have all the movements in that one place, so you can easily get the audience interactive and stuff.
We used a projection that came down in front of the set to transition between the three acts of the plays, and why that was really instrumental was to kind of really make the audience understand about the location of it. Like the location of the play was really crucial to it, and we shot it all on location out near Inglewood, west of Queensland, and the place around where we filmed was, literally you could look in 360 degrees and you couldn't see another house or another person, and so it had that real feeling of isolation that we wanted the audience to understand exactly what was, where they were in the live space.
I reckon that would have had the best atmosphere, like that tense, it's about to happen and you're seeing it right there, you're almost amongst it. Almost in there. Now guys, do we think there is enough of these based adaptations happening, or are they being taken over by toy-themed and superhero movies?
Because I mean, these days, every time you go to the cinema, it's just always like next Transformers, next Spider-Man. It's always the same formula, but we never see all these really classic theatre plays like get given justice onto the silver screen. Do you sort of agree with that? Or
I guess it's just the blockbuster thing. They're probably out there, but they're probably in your sort of smaller theatres, your art house theatres, and all that sort of stuff. So, then there's a big correlation between novels and stuff that get adapted.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go from the novel to the play and then to the stage, to the screen. Sorry. The one we were thinking of before was The King's Speech. That was actually a play that was produced in Adelaide, and the director saw it in Adelaide and went, "Oh, this has got to be a film." So yeah.
There's probably an argument to be said for keeping some of those classics in the theatre as well, rather than kind of adapting everything into film. That there's a certain audience, like the film audience appeals to millions and millions of people, and plays don't really. That's the reality of it. But there's nothing sort of more satisfying than going into a theatre and seeing a kind of a classic work really well produced by actors who are trained and can engage you for an hour and a half or 2 hours right in front of you. I think there's definitely a place for that. There certainly should be a place for that.
Because I noticed when how you've got certain adaptations like they do in Hollywood, such as like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Frost and Nixon, which I actually didn't know was a theatre play, but they practically rewrite the script and they just keep the names and the setting only. So it begs the question, is it really an adaptation? Like, they're great films, but it doesn't really adapt that medium to another. And I think maybe, would you guys agree it's a tough thing to do? Like, it doesn't have the same feel because you're changing everything for a new medium?
Yeah, well, I guess, and you wonder how true it is to the writer's intention as well. I think when someone writes either a play or a story and they have a vision for how it's going to be produced, and someone takes it and adapts it into a film, it's going to be very, very different. And you wonder always whether that does justice to their work and their ideas.
Well, unfortunately, guys, we've run out of time, but thank you so much, Brad and Stephen, for coming in. It's been awesome having you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
And make sure you guys follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Tony and I will be back next week. See you later.
See ya.